Hello, and thank you for watching my video. This video is in reference to research-based instructional strategies for the class of Reading 545, Advanced Studies and Methods for Secondary Content Reading. The standards that these instructional strategies fall under would be Standard 1, which would be read closely, determine what the text says explicitly and implicitly, and make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. It would also fall under Standard 2, determine the central idea or themes of a text and analyze their development, summarize, and key supporting details and ideas. Also, Standard 3, analyze how and why individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. Now, any of these instructional strategies can be applied to either math, social studies, or science. So I felt they would be good ones to discuss. Okay, the first one is pre-assess. The importance of pre-assessment is to find out what the students know and also to assist in the lesson planning. This is a great strategy to know exactly where the students are, what information needs to be reviewed, and where to go from there. Two examples of how to pre-assess would be the KWL chart, which would be you just draw on the board what they know, what they want to know, and then at the end what they've learned. So you can monitor their learning throughout the process. Another one would be pre-assessment tests, which is a great tool for math to know what skills that the students already possess, which ones need to be reviewed, and how to adjust your instruction according to that. Again, these are useful in all three content areas. The next instructional strategy that I find very helpful is activate prior knowledge. We need to find out in depth what they already have understanding about. Again, that goes back to what needs to be reviewed throughout a lesson. It makes connections to previous lessons that have already been taught, helps you connect to future lessons, and also it involves oral communication, which is a large component of literacy. So students, especially that struggle with reading and writing, this is essential to assess where your students are at all given times. It is also necessary and an important instructional strategy is to explain why they need to know the material, offer how the information is relevant in their own lives or how it's going to be useful come testing or anything else in their future. It offers connections to future lessons and how the concepts build on one another, especially in a mathematical sense. But that also applies through science and social studies. You need to know previous history before you can discuss other history beyond that point. The next instructional strategy that I think is very helpful is to offer visuals to introduce a lesson. Visuals are a great instructional strategy for visual learners, and as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So you can start a good communication line and have a good discussion about where the lesson is going. Videos are also a great way to activate prior knowledge and to also build on background knowledge. And the videos definitely help students, especially with disabilities. The next important instructional strategy that I would say would be explicitly teach vocabulary and their definitions. This is great for students to scan the chapter that they will be reading so they can be first introduced to the material in the reading, but also students that struggle with reading should have a copy of the vocabulary words so they're not taking as long to search. That's a good accommodation that you can offer your students with learning disabilities. That way they're still copying, they're still being held accountable to know the vocabulary, but it just takes that step away of having to go through all of the reading to find them. The next thing that I think is a really important strategy, especially when it comes to literacy, is to set a purpose for reading. Review the steps of what good readers do every time before you go ahead and read. It kind of reminds me of being a mom that every day you have to remind your kids to make the bed and why it's important. So by utilizing this technique, it It gets the kids ready for a purpose for reading, why they are actually reading, and that reading is an active process and you need to be involved in it. You need to preview the text, the title, the pictures, read questions that follow the reading. That will help students. I find this to be a great instructional strategy, especially when state testing is coming up, that they read the questions first before they even read the text to know that activates the brain to look for those important points that the testers are finding important. You want to have the students question the who, what, when, where, and why, the how and why. You have to set the purpose for reading. So if it's an instructional text, informational, expository, then you need to put that forward. What are you supposed to gain out of the reading? Then you want to make predictions. What do you think is going to happen within the text? What do you think you're going to learn from this? You can infer what the author means through his writing, and also connect the reading to prior knowledge and summarize paragraphs in your own words, which gets into note-taking, which is great for active readers to do. It helps them stay involved with the text, so they are constantly summarizing in their own words, because that's an important component of literacy. As I was saying, another instructional strategy is to teach note-taking while they read. This could go for highlighting, how to highlight important aspects of the text. A lot of times students just want to highlight everything, but that's not the purpose of highlighting. Also, jotting down notes helps with comprehension because it is the active process, that literacy is connecting the reading and the writing, because a lot of times students learn to write, or when they're learning to write, they're actually monitoring their comprehension and being able to express that. Another important instructional strategy across any content area would be to practice the vocabulary daily. It was noted in one of my readings last week that in order for vocabulary to become processed and learned by a student, they have to interact with it at least 6 to 20 times. So I designate the first 5 minutes of my class just for any vocabulary or spelling words. So that way I know my students are practicing, especially students with disabilities that might not have the support and be carrying it out at home. So great ways to practice vocabulary: flashcards. Have the students write flashcards instead of look up the vocabulary words. Kahoot is a great game-based, interactive internet game that they can play, and they certainly love games. And also Quizlet. Quizlet is a great way you can put the words in yourself and just have them practice them. And the last part of good research-based instructional strategies is to assess at the end of the lesson. The whole point of the lesson is to teach. And in order to teach, you need to find out what they have, the knowledge that they have acquired, and where you may need to reteach. So you give the assessment, and it's important that you allow the student to write in their own words what they have learned. Try to prompt them to get the information out of them, rather than just always ABC, because sometimes students struggle with that. They can probably write easier what they know, or even verbally if the student is low with their written expression. I like to give the option after the assessment for students, or not so much offer them the option, but require, if it is a failing grade, that they have to fix the mistakes rather than retake the whole test, because that is so time consuming. And in the scheme of everything that we need to teach on a daily basis, you want them to direct their attention to the information that they did not understand. And then also, it allows all students to succeed, and then they actually get to view the test to see the concepts that they did miss. So all of these are great instructional strategies, not only for students with disabilities, but also for every type of learner in your class. These are areas that should be hit upon for every lesson. So I thank you for your time.